Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We got a franchise opportunity for you here because I know starting a business can be tough. But if there's somebody who's already done it right, you may want to pay attention and learn from them. So let's get started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Hi, Business Bros. Our guest is a leading expert in franchise consulting, helping countless entrepreneurs transition from the 9-to-5 grind to a thriving business ownership. With deep insight into why franchising is exploding in popularity, especially outside the food industry, he's here to share how anyone can diversify their income and build their dream business. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Jon Ostenson. Franchising Jon, let's do this, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey, excited to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Let's do it, man. All right. Right off the bat, when anybody hears franchising, they almost always go to the food, mainly because that's where we go oftentimes. You're talking about other places, other types of businesses give me the skinny on this. What is it that you do to help people start these franchises?
Yeah, and we've got nothing against the food guys. We need them. We love them.
Uh-oh, did we lose you? Jon, you there? Uh-oh. Jon, maybe we lost Jon there for a second. Uh-oh. Jon seems frozen, and we're live, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so hopefully he comes back here in a second. In the meantime, we'll keep his screen right there on the side. So, let's see, I haven't had dead air time like this in quite some time, but we are live and we're gonna see what happens. Hopefully Jon can come back here in a second. Franchising. So I had a conversation with franchising opportunities just a little while ago, and the whole idea behind, let's see, there he goes, he bounced. So hopefully he comes back in and we can get him started. Hopefully what he's going to talk to us about, right? The different types of opportunities that are out there for franchising. I get it. Starting a business at the very beginning can be very tough. It is grueling work. You have an idea. It sounds cool in your mind, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, there's all kinds of things that you have to do in a business to make it function efficiently so that you're not the one doing all the work all the time. Because let's be honest, as an entrepreneur, you have maybe a particular skill set that you want to get involved in business, but what happens is you realize when you get started, oh, somebody needs to do the bookkeeping. Oh, you got to file your tax returns. Oh, you got to deal with human resources. Oh, you got to actually book the work and then do the work and file the invoices, all kinds of stuff, right? And so it gets really overwhelming. And a lot of times as business owners, it's not that you can't do the work. It's just that after a couple years, you get burnt out. And so hopefully Jon can come back here and we'll have that discussion on franchising. But as a franchise, when you're looking at different franchises, the opportunities pop up because these are people who have already built a business. And so the systems are already in place. In other words, they already have a way for you to acquire clients. They already have a way for you to process payments. They already have a way to for your branding and your logo and where you get your supplies from. All these things are already set up for you. And as a franchise owner, you're not walking into something that may or may not work. You're working into a proven system that has already worked. And so that's kind of the huge benefits of starting a franchise. What are the downsides, right? So again, I'm not a super expert in this stuff, and this is why I like to have the interviews for my experts, but hopefully he comes back here in a second and tells us a little more. But usually when you're going to get into a franchise opportunity, what ends up happening is you have to have a startup fee. It's kind of like joining a club, right? Like to get into the club, you have a membership fee, and that's your initiation fee usually for these franchises. And then after that, a lot of times these franchises have a royalty on top of that. And here's Jon. Whew. All right. Let's bring John back in here. John, you came back.
Oh my. Cyber attack there. Not sure what
Right?
happened.
It's one of those things. So since we're live, I was kind of sharing with the audience right now, and I'm glad you came back. But basically, I give them kind of a rundown where an entrepreneur is at the very beginning phase, doesn't realize that they have to essentially put on all kinds of different hats. And most entrepreneurs, it's not that they're bad at business. It's just that oftentimes they get burnt out. Whereas when they get a franchise opportunity, these are systems that are already built in place. There's already proven success. And so they have an opportunity to buy in here. So back to you, the expert in this space. Tell me a little bit about what you do to help people build their franchises.
Absolutely. So we work with over 600 different franchise companies that are out there looking to expand across a wide variety of industries all over the US and Canada. And we help our clients connect the dots to understand, if I were in their shoes, having all the experience that I have as a franchisor and a multi-brand franchisee myself, what are the top opportunities that I would be considering in their market, given their background and given what's available in the market? And so we come to them and say, hey, if we were you, here are the top 10 or 12 opportunities that we feel strongly about. They have the financial models, the leadership teams, the competitive advantages. Current franchisees in their system are saying good things about their experience. And so we help our clients understand those opportunities and then narrow those down and then engage with those companies. And then we hold their hand through the discovery process. And beautiful thing is it's entirely free to work with us. We're essentially a real estate broker, or you might consider us a executive recruiter. So we simply get a referral fee from the brand. None of that's passed on to our clients. So it's really a great model that we've got going.
Let me ask you about the different types of franchises that are out there, because I know sometimes there's an entrepreneur that's just tired of working for somebody and they kind of want to own their own job and they want to get to work and be busy in there. But there are other types of people who don't want to own their own job. They want this as an investment opportunity that has some sort of cash flow and ROI, some return on investment. Which is the good fit, or is it both?
Yeah, I'd say a little more than half of our clients will jump in and run the business themselves, what we call an owner operator, usually with the idea that they'll replace themselves with a manager once they understand the business. The other half put a manager in place day one. It's what we call semi-passive or executive model. I never want to sugarcoat it. It still takes a lot of hard work. And, the success really comes down to having a good manager that you've incentivized that's running the day-to-day for you. But, oftentimes they will, if you don't have the right person, then you have to lean in a little bit more. But we've got so many case studies of clients of ours that have built up these empires over time. I mean, I myself, invest in a lot of franchises. So I believe in it from an asset class standpoint, franchising as an asset class. There's just, as you know, so many benefits to business ownership that maybe you've got a high paid W-2 spouse and you're trying to find ways to offset income. I mean, the tax code was written in favor of business owners and franchise owners. You get to write off so many different expenses and just, really opens up a world of opportunity once people get off the couch and realize, hey, maybe I shouldn't invest just in real estate, just in public equities, but I should also invest in businesses.
Yeah, holding some of those assets definitely will help. I'm a fan of cash flow. And so, money into these organizations where you have a lot of control over how much money goes in as well as how much money goes out, because some of these systems are already put in place. Now, I don't want to be like a maverick or do things my own way. I remember watching The Founder, and he goes off and sells some of these McDonald's early on. And then he shows up and there's like lettuce in there. They're selling chicken at this franchise. They're not following the mold. If you got entrepreneurs out there that are kind of, want to do their own thing, how is that something that's a fit for them, or what should an entrepreneur expect when going into one of these franchise models?
Yeah, there are certain individuals that come to me and say, hey, we want to get into franchising, and we get to know each other. And I say, frankly, you're too entrepreneurial. You'd want to put your thumbprints all over the business and not stay within the lines. It's probably not the right fit. But for so many, including existing business owners that have been there, done that remember all the hard work that goes into it, franchising is great. And having been a franchisor myself, our top franchisees, when I looked across the swath of, all the different owners, they were the ones that followed the system. And that sounds so cliche to say, but that's why you're getting involved in a franchise system. So I'd say if you've got the humility to follow a system, you always want to learn new things, likely in a new industry that you don't have any experience in, it can really be a good path to get to third base a whole lot faster than making all the mistakes and trying to do it on your own. I do want to caveat this by saying, just like any industry, there's a lot of great franchises out there. There are a lot of them also that I would not want to be associated with. So that's why we help our clients understand who are the good players in the industry, who are the ones that will really set you up for success, that care about you, that have the track record, versus, the ones that may not be as strong. I mean, there's close to 4,000 franchises in the US. And so once you take out food and hotels and you start to narrow it down, really there are only so many that are really strong that we feel good about.
Well, let's talk about some of those because, I teach high school seniors and it's a class called financial algebra. So I like to give them different opportunities aside from going to college, which we were traditionally told to do. I'm a big fan right now of going into the trades because I believe that those human to human operations are things that are not going to be destroyed by AI or not as impacted by AI as some of these other traditional education routes that are going on out there. They're also, quote unquote, boring businesses, but they also have the ability to have some great cash flow. So what are some of the cool or different types of franchises out there that maybe are in the trades or maybe are types of franchises that you see right now people are really kind of gravitating to that have a good upside?
Yeah, the trades, I agree with you 100%. Everything from insulation to flooring to gutters. I mean, here are two examples of ones that I personally own. One does asphalt paving and line striping, so parking lots. You don't think about it until you're in that industry, right? Another one provides temporary walls, containment walls around renovation projects and construction sites. Again, you walk by those, you never think about it, but it's kind of an equipment rental type business. Switching gears, I've got one in the health and wellness space that uses 3D printing to produce custom inserts like insoles for your feet, for your shoes, and we sell some footwear as well. So there's so much diversity. I mean, some of the things that we see people getting into, we've had clients do extremely well with youth soccer. People will always spend on their kids. They'll always spend on their aging parents. In-home senior care, I did probably a dozen placements in that space last year. Pet grooming, pet boarding, huge categories. But people will always spend on the things they care about: their homes, their health, their kids, their pets, their aging parents. I'd say the general theme that we like to go after is non-sexy in a lot of cases. We're not looking for trends. We're not looking for the next, big thing. We want understandable cash flowing businesses that aren't going out of style anytime soon. And the trades definitely fit the bill. And we do a lot in the trades.
I love that. Any particular companies right now top of mind for you that are like, look, this is definitely something cool. This is definitely something that's up and coming that I think people should take a look at?
Well, unfortunately, this one sold out in the U.S. last year pretty quickly, and we had a couple of clients placed in it. Business called Game Day Men's Health, and it was men's testosterone replacement. They provide some other services too, but that's kind of the gist of it. And it's a good example of a lot of other spaces where it's highly fragmented out there. You have a lot of mom and pops, but you don't have like a true national brand. So they've been able to come in there. We have clients do really well, like in the restoration space, water mitigation, mold remediation, things that are needs-based businesses, again, that aren't going out of style. There's a business called Art of Drawers that I'm invested in on the franchisor side that provides custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries. And, people right now, I mean, there are less real estate transactions. People are staying in their homes. A lot of people are aging in place, the older demographic, and they're willing to invest in things like their kitchens and, those spaces that they use all the time. And so just love that business. We've had franchisees coming back, buying additional locations, which you always love to see. It's just so much variety out there.
Let me ask about cost, because let's face it, when you think of franchises, you think of McDonald's and you think $1 million franchise fees just to get started. And a lot of investors obviously don't have $1 million just sitting around to go in and invest. What kind of capital are we looking at? And then how long till we can see a decent return on that capital?
Yeah. Well, I had some clients recently purchase 10 trampoline parks, and those are about $3.5 million each. So that's on one extreme. Most of our clients are, when you look at the franchise fee and the startup cost and several months of working capital, essentially you're all in initial investment. Oftentimes you're in the range of $150,000 to $400,000. I'd say that's where a lot of them fall. But most people are not using all cash to fund it. Most are using maybe $50,000 to $75,000 of cash, but then they're using an SBA loan. Those are very common. Banks love lending to franchises versus startups, right? For all the obvious reasons. And so we have a lot of partners that help our clients with their SBA loans, but that's a very common way is to use leverage. Some people will use an old retirement plan, 401k from a previous employer, roll that over through what's called the ROBS program, where they can actually purchase the business with their retirement plan and then pay themselves a salary. Certainly some people will use HELOCs or other means as well to fund it.
And for some of these SBA loans, and I know you're not in the lending side, but are we looking at like does an entity the one that qualifies? Is a personal investor the one who qualifies? How do we normally structure that if somebody's never done anything like this before? They just want to get started. Maybe they got 100 grand sitting around and they're like, let's look at something. What should be their first couple steps?
Yeah, as far as that goes, well, I mean, reach out to us and we're happy to connect you also on the lending side. We've got some great partners. But no, ultimately, it is your personal credit that you're using, right? There's no track record for the business yet. So you're using your personal credit for the lending. So yeah, I mean, that's the risk you run, right? You're signing up and let's say it doesn't go as planned, which every now and then that happens. I mean, it's a small minority of our clients that it happens to, but for whatever reason, they didn't follow the system or maybe their situation changed. Usually they'll be able to sell that business, but that would be the risk, right? Is that you're taking on a loan that you're signed up for.
Yeah, it can get scary. But again, the franchise model is one of those things where the systems are already put in place. And to get started when somebody's at the very beginning phase of this, what can they expect when they come talk to you? And like, is this something that happens within a month? Is this something that happens within 6 months? What information do you need from me? If I'm getting started at the beginning, what can I expect?
Yeah, so we would hop on a call, probably spend about 30 minutes. I'd ask you some questions, get to know you a little bit better, answer some of your questions. And I'd provide you with a good bit of materials to kind of get you up to speed. Certainly would love to share a free copy of our book, Non-Food Franchising, with any of your listeners. But help you understand the business. And then from there, I would have you fill out some very basic high-level information. And then I would come back to you about a week later with the opportunities. And we look at probably somewhere around 10 or 12 opportunities that we feel good about that are open there in the market. You would narrow it down to 3 or 4 to then have a conversation with. And, we can always iterate and bring others back in, but it gives us a really good starting point is what we found. And again, we kind of hold your hand through the process. So speaking to the franchisor from there, it usually takes about 2 months. I'd say the process goal is to get you as much information about the opportunity as possible. You'll get to hear from all different types of members of the franchisor's team. You'll get to talk to other franchisees in their system and hear about their experience and ask them questions. Again, we want you going in eyes wide open. You'll get a copy of the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. It's a big old intimidating document that's got all sorts of information, everything you could ever want. And again, like you said, nothing's a guarantee from a performance standpoint. But the nice thing is that you do get to talk to others that are running that business, hear about their ramp up and how fast they got to break even. And you get historical results on how other franchisees in the system have done. So again, you go in with much more than a pro forma on the back of a napkin.
You don't know what you don't know is always part of life. And as you get older, you realize you really don't know anything. You're starting to learn a lot more. What are some of the most common misconceptions that you find that when you talk to people about franchising, they tend to have?
Yeah. Well, first off, when you say the F word franchise, people do associate it with fast food. So it's helping them understand there's so much more out there. And that's why I titled my book Non-Food Franchising. But I'd say misconceptions are, that it's totally turnkey, that, you can just sign up and throw some money at it and it's going to run itself. I mean, there's still involvement. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So It is still an active involvement, even if you are executive model. I like to call it semi-active instead of semi-passive. I think that's a better term. So I just never want to sugarcoat that point. But we have so many case studies, myself included, where if you have a good manager in place and you've got a good franchisor on the sideline, they can carry a lot of that daily support water for you so you can keep your W-2 job or you can keep your current business. So franchising does allow for that more than just a startup. But I'd say other misconceptions, again, just like any industry, you're going to hear a story about a franchise that did not do well out there, or franchisees struggled and maybe they got ahead of their skis with their growth, or they didn't have a business model that was differentiated enough, or maybe they weren't well capitalized. I mean, you do hear about that. There's just enough volume, just like in any industry, you're going to have situations. But you look at the numbers and the vast majority that do have a very good experience and how it helps them change their lives and, and have that freedom where they're living life on their terms. Now, I'll say in my experience, I spent many years in the corporate world, like many of your listeners. But the last 10 years I've been in entrepreneurship. I pinch myself every day. I could never go back, thankful for the times that I had, but not everyone's cut out for it. I'm probably the hardest boss I've ever had, but I love it. Absolutely love it.
What are when looking at different franchises, what would you say are some of the key things that we should be looking for, or key things that we should be avoiding when trying to evaluate some of these guys?
Yeah, I'd say certainly track record. What does their growth look like? What are the existing franchisees? What has been their trajectory? What are they saying about their experience? I mean, no one's going to be more honest than the people in the business, right?
True.
And have a better feel for it. But understanding their growth, understanding how well capitalized they are. The financial model's got to be there, the competitive advantages versus the competition. I always encourage my clients to do some secret shopping. Let's visit the competition before you ever buy. Understand how you're going to compete and differentiate. What the composition of the leadership team. I mean, the more I invest personally and I invest in all sorts of different asset classes, the older I get, the more I invest in the people at the top, the sponsor behind it. That's just so important. So there are cases where franchises may have great industry experience and they're brand new to franchising. That's very common. I want to see situations where they bring franchise people onto their team, people that have been there, done that, supported successful franchisees. I think that's very important to have that.
So let me ask you about that, because finding good employees is hard enough already. Finding good managers is even more difficult to run, and having people, especially if you have an investor that's going to come in and doesn't have the time to run this operation. How do you find good people? How do you define those good people, and how do you find them?
Yeah, within franchising, it probably helps some. You're still trying to find them, but the franchisor can say, hey, here are the job descriptions that have worked for us to find other good people. Here are the pools that we fished in for those types. Talk to other franchisees. I mean, that's the beauty of franchising, is you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. You've got a community of other individuals running the same business in other markets day in, day out. You're constantly exchanging best practices and learnings, trying to shortcut, success. So you're learning from them. So you have some good inputs to kind of get you going down the right track. Ultimately, in most cases, it's still up to you to hire the right people. But they can talk about compensation structure, how they incentivize and bonus their people. But I mean, we had, in one of my businesses, it was a driveway business. Again, talking about the trades, our general manager was a former CPA. He was an accountant, but after 5 years of accounting, he poked his head up, looked around and said, hey, I'm tired of sitting in a cubicle. I want to. And so some of the hacks that I've realized is titles are free. You never want to over title too much, but people, that is important to someone. So, giving them a title, giving them responsibility. And then I like to give people 3 pay package options with different levels of incentive compensation versus base salary. You never know what someone's situation is. And that gives them the ownership in the decision of which one they want to go with. So again, that's just a little hack that I've learned over time.
Your book is about non-food franchising, and we've talked a lot about the kind of bashed a little bit on the food stuff, but everybody's got to eat. So let me ask you, why are we staying away from these food franchises, even though we see them so often?
Yeah, first off, I like to go deep. So if I was doing food, I couldn't focus in these other industries to the degree I can, but again, my humble belief is there are easier ways to make money. Now, if you own a bunch of Jimmy John's, or, I've got clients that do own a lot of McDonald's, you can do very, very well. But a lot of the food opportunities, that branding is everything in food, right? It's not as important in insulation, right? But in food, it's everything. So, a lot of upstarts in food, it's just a risk because you're investing a lot of capital, heavy CapEx, and just from a business model standpoint, you've got a lot of hourly employees. You're always on, the operating hours are pretty challenging at times. Consumer whims change. I mean, frozen yogurt was big until it wasn't, right? So there's just a lot more risk, in my opinion, than in a business that's, doing pool cleaning or kitchen cabinets or things that, again, aren't going out of style anytime soon.
Customer acquisition is always some of the biggest problems that almost every business has. Can you kind of elaborate on how a franchise model might help with that customer acquisition?
Yeah, certainly brand awareness can come into play. But again, a lot of businesses in the trades, you're not familiar with some of those brands, and maybe they don't have enough locations just yet. That's why they still have some prime locations. It's kind of a little bit of science and art there. trying to find the right territory, but they haven't grown too big yet. So I'd say, from a lead generation standpoint, the franchise can absolutely play a big role in, you're not just starting from scratch, going out and marketing. You step into not only a playbook of what's worked in the past, but that franchisor has a lot of data and analytics in most cases. They know how to ramp up new locations and what levers to pull from a marketing spend standpoint. And again, you're talking to other franchisees, figuring out what organic traffic are you able to drive. Maybe it's sponsoring the Little League baseball team or getting involved in the Chamber of Commerce, or these types of companies would be good referral partners. Once that franchise grows, then you do, like my asphalt paving and line striping business. We've got national partners now because we have such a footprint across the country that they've been able to form these national accounts for us that we can leverage. So I'd say it's multidimensional there, but you're definitely not going in flying blind. You're able to optimize your ad spend much earlier.
I remember, 20 years ago now, reading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and he's talking about how Rich Dad went and found these new things called franchises, and it seems like so long ago, but so much has changed over time. How has the franchise model evolved over time, and how does it make it so much better for people to get involved today?
Yeah. And again, I don't want to ever sugarcoat anything. There are a lot of really great players. There's some that I wouldn't want to be associated with. So I just always want to give that caveat. But I'd say it's evolved in that so many different types of businesses are playing now. I mean, again, I've mentioned just a few small examples, but so many different niches in companies that wouldn't have thought about franchising in the past, but now they're looking around saying, hey, this could be a great model from a franchisor standpoint as well. Allows them to expand fairly quickly using other people's money, and those people have skin in the game, so they're going to run it like they care about the business, right? Private equity loves franchising. I'd say that's another input. But with private equity, they're not looking to come in and strip out costs. Instead, what they're looking to do in most cases, especially in the non-food that I've seen, groups like Princeton Equity and others, they come in and invest strategic capital, have a shared platform for their different brands, and really provide a lot of value. It's patient capital, as I would call it. So I've really seen it be a valuable plus one for franchising. So I'd say that's another way. I would say just from an awareness standpoint, there are others who do what I do. I feel like we do a pretty good job here, but I think there's just an awareness out there in the market of franchising as an opportunity. I mean, you see it all over social media. And I do want to caution people, when you're looking for a franchise, there's a lot of noise out there. If you start Googling around, and it's so important to understand the team behind that franchise. Even your top 50 or top 100 franchise list that different publications put out, most of those companies are paying to be on that list. So again, just a lot of noise. It's hard to know what's going on behind the scenes. And that's where, again, we've got the relationships and can help our clients.
So someone is on the fence. They're maybe thinking about franchising, maybe thinking about going at it their own. What advice would you give them to help make them make a more informed decision?
Yeah, I'd say read our book, Non-Food Franchising. There's a chapter on there where I talk about, franchising versus startups. I also have a chapter where I talk about franchising versus buying an existing business. That's a very common idea these days. And there are pros and cons both ways, but it is interesting when most people understand, kind of the risk associated just from a sheer look at how many businesses succeed versus don't succeed in startups versus franchising. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming. But that whole entrepreneurship through acquisition idea is big out there. A lot of clients call me and say, hey, we've been looking for an existing business for the past 2 years, 3 years. We've gone under LOI, but once we've gotten due diligence, it didn't work out, or the seller wouldn't budge on price, or we learned something new, we got outbid. I hear this every single day. And then when they step back and say, wait a minute, I would have been paying a premium for that business, but I run the risk of losing key employees day two. Whenever you have a change in ownership, you run the risk of losing people, right? Or key customers. And here they paid a premium for the business. Instead, they look at the franchise and say, well, this is an existing business model. I'm bringing it to the market, into my market, but I've got all this support on the sidelines. I can put my thumbprints on it from day one, from who I hire and the culture that I build, and I'm not paying a premium for the business. So oftentimes they end up going the franchise route.
Yeah, and it's almost always a smart move to have a team behind you. I know sometimes you think you can do it all your own, but finding a good team behind you is going to make the biggest difference. I've built companies by myself. I always hit a plateau. It's not until you partner up with the right people that you tend to break those barriers. Jon, if somebody wants to reach out and find out more about maybe opening a franchise, starting a franchise, buying a franchise, how can they do that? What can they do to reach out to you?
Yeah, come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com. That's FRAN bridgeconsulting.com. Share your email address. We'll send you a free downloadable copy of our book, Non-Food Franchising. And just to indicate, in that correspondence, if you'd like to set up a call, more than happy to jump on and kind of talk you through what it could look like and better understand your situation and give you some thoughts. And once again, it's entirely free to work with us. We get a referral fee on the back end. None of that's passed on to you. So it's a great model. There's really no downside to taking a first step. And I'd say the book would be the first step, and getting on a call with us would be a second one.
Have a conversation. That's where it all starts. If you're thinking about it, nothing's going to happen with this thought. You have to take action, ladies and gentlemen. It starts with that simple. Send me the book. Shoot your email over to Jon, franbridgeconsulting.com. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen, franbridgeconsulting.com. Hop over there, get some information, and take action. Even if you don't end up buying a franchise, the education that you're going to learn will help take you that next step that you need to go to. But I promise you, if you got that entrepreneurial spirit and you want to start something, it's going to be a lot easier to get into something that is already existing. It's going to save you so much time, so many headaches, and you'll have people that you can talk to, conversate with, learn from. It's a much better pathway than starting from scratch. Jon, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for you guys today. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get